with Tourette's, it's not well known. It's like one of those hidden gem movies where once everyone sees it, you're going to love it.
Yes. Hey, everybody. It's Ben. If you tried to tune in last week and were like, wait a minute, no podcast this week? Well, a big thanks to Microsoft Windows for delivering an automated update that just wrecked my operating system and ultimately led to emergency maneuvering that just zapped all of my recording and production software. Gone. You've already heard about this if you listened to my little voice memo from last week. Credit due. The Windows tech support guy I was on the phone with all night was polite, courteous, friendly, all those synonyms. And together, we at least got to where I could recover my media files, which, yes, were redundantly backed up in the event of situations like this. But I couldn't access anything, not even my desktop, until we sorted some things out with a final move that, prevented me from producing anything. Software gone. I'm still rebuilding my system here, but I'm good enough to where I can at least start putting out episodes. If it sounds a little bit different sonically, that's why. But I want to thank you for understanding and giving me a little downtime to get this taken care of. In that downtime, which really wasn't any downtime, I heard from a lot of new listeners. Thank you for the nice emails, among them Nicole and John and Teresa, Shannon, Hannah, Susan, David, and most recently, Maya. Thank you for the kind words. I hope I'm not leaving anybody out. New listeners this week represent locations including the US, Canada, England, and Iceland. And I want to read a quick email dialogue that I had with a listener. I don't know if she wanted her name in there, so I'm just going to keep that out of it, but her 12-year-old son has Tourette syndrome. She had a question here. This listener says, I just want to thank you so much for this podcast. My 12-year-old son has Tourette's. He has had tics on and off his whole life, but was actually diagnosed with TS about a year ago. He also has OCD. My question is, what did your parents do that looking back you considered was helpful with your tics, and what wasn't helpful? I'll be honest, there are times my husband and I just want to say stop it. I know this isn't helpful. My son does go to therapy and takes medication, so we have a good support system. Okay, and I wrote back the following. Thank you so much, really appreciate the kind words. I hear from parents often, and not having kids, I can only speak to my own experience with TS in answering questions or giving feedback. The first thing that comes to mind in attempting to answer your question, and this may be too specific of an answer, but there might be something to take away from it, is that it took a long time for me to convince my parents that the grade school I was at was doing me a tremendous disservice. A private school. I couldn't find a rhythm with the style of education. I didn't feel understood by the teachers. I didn't feel culturally or socially educated either. Nor did I feel invited to express myself, at least not in the way I wanted. And so it only led to bad grades and personal problems. Long story short, I was essentially dismissed from that school for behavioral reasons, but it turns out that was the best thing to ever happen to me. Basically, I went from private school with a bunch of people and administrators I had nothing in common with, to a public school that was way more free-feeling to me. No uniforms, for instance. Everything felt way less planned out and perhaps even a little chaotic. But somehow that really worked for me. It's funny that I often hear the reverse these days, that a TS parent took his or her child out of public school and placed that child into private school and saw improvement. But I think the common denominator here is paying attention to how well the child connects with his or her learning environment. And you may indeed be doing this perfectly. It's definitely the first thing that comes to mind, looking back though. Not to put words in my parents' mouths, but I believe if you ask them what they would do differently, it would be to make sure to better educate my teachers and friends' parents on what Tourette syndrome is and isn't, and certainly as it related to my case, in a way that doesn't come off like a lecture, oddly special consideration, or toxified circumstance. And I gotta cut in on myself and add a little post-it note here that my parents didn't have an abundance of resources to pull from, at least not like today. So they definitely did the best they could in educating adults, teachers, and so on about what Tourette syndrome is. This was the 1980s. Back to it, I wrote, I remember clearly certain teachers and other adults talking to my friends with a normal tone of voice, and then repeating the same thing to me in simpler terms, with more of a babyish tone of voice, with them assuming, or perhaps being told, that I was mentally incapable of processing colloquialisms and other conversational speak. That did me a lot of damage in terms of my social awareness and confidence as a young man. In their minds, they were only trying to help and they thought they were approaching me the correct way. Some of this may sound contradictory or complicated. Make sure teachers and administrators and adults understand what TS is so they get interaction right, while trying not to make that child feel lesser than or in need of extra regard. I feel like both go to the same place, though. I was in a world of unknowns and medication trials and on, but to me the most obvious void in my childhood was confidence and being taken at my word. Nothing I blame my parents for at all, because they did amazing work. But sadly, my solution was to completely bottle up and privatize my TS, which honestly worked for me in terms of social acceptance. Minimize or closet up anything upon which peers might form negative or limiting judgments. That was my plan, but that was really the worst way to go about it. I was denying self-acceptance for the convenience of others. Really, I needed support. Didn't want to feel like I was something that needed to be fixed. Indeed, there were so many special considerations for my upbringing and my education, but again, I think all of that goes to enabling what worked for me, which was an environment that I could connect with. This will vary from child to child. I might not be making any sense at this point, but these are the things that come to mind. Okay, so that was my long-winded response to this listener. I gotta emphasize that this is just my story. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor of any kind. I can only cite my own experience as an adult living with Tourette syndrome, diagnosed when I was a little kid. Obviously, I love talking about it these days, hence this podcast. So let's get to our guest this week. This is Alexi from Ottawa, Canada. And if you're into craft beer, you'll dig what Alexi does for a living. If you're not into beer, that's fine. You'll still love his story. And you'll definitely like him. He keeps it really positive, just nice to talk with and hear from. So here's me and Alexi.
It's one of those things I only found out about you guys, or at least your show, heck, maybe a month and a half ago.
Oh, wow.
Because
okay.
I was just kind of in like a bit of a funk. And I was just kind of going through like some things. And I was just like, you know what? I want to see if there's something about this on the podcast app. I mean, right now I'm massive into comedy and all that stuff, and I listen to How Did This Get Made on podcast and a couple other.
I love that.
It's a great podcast, and I'm just like, you know what, screw it. Let's see if there's something like this. So I just typed in Tourette's, and instantly yours just came up as Tourette's podcast. Nothing, no weird name, it's just straight up. I know exactly what I'm walking into, and it felt comfortable. It felt like a very nice conversation, as if I was sitting with you and whoever.
Man, yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, that's exactly why I started the podcast and how it came to be, because I just assumed that this kind of thing already existed. And when I looked it up, I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I kind of do podcasting by trade anyway.
Nice.
You know, let's just start it and see if it goes. And
clearly it's doing
gone well.
something.
Yeah, I'm very happy with it. It seems like so season one was, you know, it got on the radar kind of quickly, but it wasn't until season one ended that a lot of people found it. And so I've been looking at the stats, and there's definitely been a spike since season one ended. So it makes me feel good going into the second season that there's going to be a bigger audience this time. Yeah,
no, for sure. And I honestly, like I said, about a month ago, I found you guys, and I've been telling as many people as I know. I mean, I've got two sisters, two older sisters, and one of them doesn't have like major Tourette's or anything like that. And honestly, if I can be honest, I don't have major Tourette's. I just have some that like come, like they inflame, let's just call it.
Sure,
and one of my other sisters, she's got a little bit worse than me, but she's got different kinds of tics. And so like for me, I just kind of just do my thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's all stuff I'd love to get into. You know, it's the same with me. I have sort of mild to mild, etc. I guess you could say. Like it kind of fluctuates, but I always have a series of tics going on. Sometimes, depending on what's going on in my life, if it's a stressful situation or work is busier than usual, then yeah, I'm sort of my ticking will kind of parallel the circumstances of life. And right now, you know, things are okay. I've developed some new tics in the past month, and those are kind of bothering me a little bit. But you know, but again, yeah, it is what it is, and the podcast really helps me to kind of connect with other people and just kind of talk through it. So it's not so bad that way.
No, exactly.
So, state your name and where you live and just kind of generally what you do.
Awesome. Yeah. So my name is Alexi Merkus. I'm born and raised here in Ottawa, Canada, and Ottawa, Ontario, and I'm still living there. And right now, actually, my main focus in life is trying to actually open up a craft brewery here. Not that we're not saturated enough, but I work for a company
Nice.
called Brew Donkey, and we're just bus trips to beer. So we bring buses of people just out to different breweries here in Ottawa. I mean, we've got around 35 in the valley. And it just kind of keeps me going just because I love learning about the craft beer scene and seeing how people do things in that scene. And it's just fun and knowledgeable because I feel like every day I'm learning something new, even though I'm going to the same places, maybe let's just say once a week or something like that. But I'm still learning a bit of a fun little fact about not even just each brewery, but just how they do things differently or how things are becoming different in the brewery scene.
Yeah, that's funny because I mean there are definitely some listeners of this podcast who are sort of craft brewing fanatics, and
Perfect.
I guess I'm one of them too. In North Carolina we have a really good amount of craft breweries, especially in Asheville, North Carolina, which is I guess one of the craft beer capitals of the U.S. So there's a brewery every 10 feet. It feels like, and I mean they're all very good. You know, they're all very. They seem to be doing well. Business is great. Even though we're kind of saturated, like you said, it seems like you still have decent odds of pulling it out as a business, which is
of course.
Really cool to see.
Well, I mean, that's it. I mean, you as you said, like you might be saturated, but that's not stopping people from going because each brewery might have, let's just say this month they'll have this beer and the next month they'll have a different one or two different beers. So all the breweries keep everybody on their toes.
Yeah, and one thing I like too is, because there's so much sort of, I guess you could call it competition, but there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of innovation. And one thing I like about the breweries around here is that they're very civically active. So it kind of busts the perception that it's just about beer or drinking, or, I mean, it's more about community, which I really like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, 100%. It's what people are at least saying here in Ottawa, they're just like craft breweries are becoming the new pub where you're done work,
right, yeah.
You just want to go home you don't want to go home yet. You just want to still stay out. Not a bad thing. You just want to kind of get away from the world, and breweries are becoming more pubs because everyone's seeing that that there's so many different beers, and you just got to try something new. It just hooks people in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so in your business, do the people you work with know that you have Tourette syndrome? I mean, are you kind of open about it, or has this been kind of a struggle?
I actually am very open about it. So a bit of a backstory upon myself. I'm not fully doctor diagnosed. This is just a self-diagnosis. Right. Just seeing me doing my own little tics here and there. I want to say ever since I was about 8. Maybe 8 or 9. I kind of grew up doing a couple sounds, especially ones that I've been reading up and hearing that a lot of people, when let's just say they start doing their tics or anything like that, they make a pig sound. That's what I started off with. Was one of my first sounds, or pulling something in the back of my throat, even though there's nothing there. It's just something that's as I've described to my friends who might understand it or just don't know enough about it. I always described it as imagining having an itch, and then you scratch it, and it comes back every 3 seconds, but the same spot. And if you don't scratch that itch, it's not the end of the world, but it just makes you mentally feel better. Right. But then it constantly comes back. It comes back because I mean, there's so many. I don't even know how many quote unquote tics there are in the world, because there's no such thing as a number. Because I feel like anything and everything is something. That's right. And I right now my biggest tic is I've got 2 big tics. One of them is where I pull the left and the right side of my neck. I just pull them up and down, which sometimes actually stops me from talking, because I'm pulling it so much that I realize, oh my goodness, I've got to stop, but I don't. until I just feel right, and then I move on. So if I'm, let's just say, talking to you, if I all of a sudden just don't talk for a few seconds, it's because I'm just constantly pulling, and it's kind of annoying because I feel like in one of the previous episodes with you, you were talking to somebody on actually episode 2 or 3. And then you chimed in by saying you had an interview over the phone, and they answered the phone, and you didn't say anything.
That's
and
right.
Not because you didn't want to, but because you had something going on.
Yeah, that's one of my tics that I hadn't had for a while, and it showed back up about a month ago. And
okay.
I'm doing okay with it so far. But last night I was laying in bed with my fiance, and I was trying to talk to her, tell her a story. And it kept striking me, and I kept having to pause. And it's kind of, I guess the way it plays out is my stomach muscles kind of tighten, and I hold my breath, and I kind of make a sound like I'm holding my breath as well.
Yeah.
And then it takes maybe 4 or 5 seconds to kind of cycle through it. And I have to kind of get it right. I have to make it has to feel right for me to move on. Yeah. And then it'll be back, maybe 5 to 10 minutes later.
Exactly. And it's frustrating.
Yeah, very frustrating. And in your case, being self-diagnosed, I mean, has it bothered you to the point where you would want to go see a doctor, or why haven't you sought that out yet?
I think the reason I haven't is because I feel like they're just going to say the obvious. Yeah. Now, there's obviously 2 sides to the story. Going to the doctor, they'll be able to say 100% yes, you do, compared to, well, it might just be stress oriented, but I feel like it's more, I'd rather get that closure, but I don't see the point. If I'm doing these things, and let's just say they're not quote unquote normal, pretty sure they're tics.
Yeah.
And what are they going to do? They're going to say, go to the, maybe take yoga, do some meditation, just relax, enjoy, chill, kind of thing. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know that, but what's the point in going for somebody just to say something that I'm pretty sure I know exactly what's going to happen?
How do you find that, is there anything that does kind of help your tics subside, or you mentioned yoga but exercises or anything like that?
I think for me is seeing people. For me, I'm very social. I'm extrovert 100%. Like me sitting inside and let's just say reading a book or just relaxing, it's a very rare thing for me to do. Right. And my wife 100% knows that, but I know when to stop. I know when I need to be like, okay, now I've just got to come down. I've just got to do nothing. But for me, if I don't do anything, I just sit there wondering, maybe I should just go out, go for a walk, or go get a cup of coffee, or maybe grab a beer with somebody, just something. For me to I don't know. I just love interaction, and I feel like it's a fantastic thing. / it might hurt me because I find that so much interaction. It might be a situation where I'm doing so much that I know for a fact that stress definitely brings it up. I don't see anybody with Tourette's or tics that say, oh no, stress doesn't bring anything up. Well, I doubt it. Pretty sure stress is the only one of the biggest things. So it's kind of like a catch-22 where if I don't do anything, I get stressed because I'm not seeing people. And if I do see people, I might get stressed because it might be too much. So,
but you said you're open about it, and sort of the extroverted nature with that. Was it always that way, or were you kind of closed up about it when you were a kid, or how'd you deal with that?
As a kid, I never put 2 and 2 together. I never was just like, oh, maybe I've got this, maybe I've got that. I just said, I just make these funny noises, or I do these funny things with my face or my body. Right. I mean, again, back to earlier episodes with you, I think it was episode 3 where someone was talking about the bridge of their nose, the shadow of their nose, excuse me, you have to cover the face. And I've got something like that. And I didn't think anybody would be doing that because it's the weirdest thing. Yeah. And all of a sudden, one person said, I was like, holy crap, you and I are exactly alike. In that sense, because it's something that I've never seen anybody do, but just one day I just took the bridge of my nose, like the shadow of my nose, and I had to cover half your face, then all of your face on the right side, and then go with the same thing on the left, and do that X amount of times until I feel content.
I did talk with somebody a little while ago who said he was cataloging tics by listening to these episodes and just seeing what people brought up and seeing, you know, if it was brought up more than once by, you know, different people. And I had never heard of that particular tic before. And like you said earlier, I mean, tics are limitless. I mean, they could be anything, whatever your brain makes up on your behalf.
Exactly.
But that's one thing I love about this podcast, at least for me. I mean, that there could be researchers and doctors listening to this who are like, yeah, we've known this stuff forever. This is nothing groundbreaking. But for me, it really, really is, because I just never really sought out this kind of information or this kind of community in my adult life until I started this podcast. And it's been the same for a lot of people who I guess have made some of the same decisions. And even if they are open about Tourette syndrome, they haven't necessarily had that community. And so it's been right. Yeah. And it's been a huge learning, experience for me, learning about myself too.
Yeah.
And for you, at what point did you, so the self-diagnosis and where it just kind of became fairly obvious that this is what you have, how old were you when you became conscious of that?
Yeah. Early teens, I would say.
Early teens.
Let's just say 13, 14 years old, give or take. It was pretty much, I never got bullied in that sense. Because I feel like I never got bullied because no one understood it. So everyone's just like, what the hell are you doing? And I just pretty much, I wasn't scared or worried or like self-conscious. I was like, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Like it's got nothing to do with you. It's just me. I just do these weird things and I'm just a weird person. And I kind of like led by that. So I never got like made fun of or poked fun at or anything like that. Because I was also learning. Because I've heard of it, and everyone talks about the and I never remember the word, but the swearing Tourette. The
carpolalia. Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah, everyone's just like, oh yeah, well you don't have that, so you don't have Tourette's. It's like, well, there's like almost nobody who has that, or it's a very small percentage, and it's just Hollywoodized because it's a quote unquote a funny thing. And sure, okay, if you're going to go that route, of course. Seeing somebody swear like that, if you want to make a comedy movie, sure. But there's also extremely, like, they're suffering. They're helpless, and I mean, this comes into many things where there's so many situations, even taking up Tourette's, where people are made fun of in a comedy way, and sometimes it is funny, and sometimes it's just like, no, well, that's just ignorant. But if people are aware that it's not just the swearing and that's such a small percentage, then maybe there's a little bit more awareness that can be done. Here in Ottawa, we have a couple Tourette walks and, Tourette Awareness Month and all that stuff, but it's still not made obvious. All year, all of 2018 so far, I've seen one billboard with Tourette's.ca. Follow us there and you never know kind of situation where that's not enough. Like, I feel like there should be a little bit more, because I guarantee you there's more people out there who have it, who either are scared to admit it or don't even know themselves.
Well, yeah. So is that a call that you've kind of answered, awareness and volunteerism or things like that?
Yes, 100%. People haven't said it, but every single time I do my pulling of the neck, where I might not talk for a good, 5-6 seconds. I'll right away say, oh, I'm really sorry. I do that in typical Canadian sorry stuff. But, I'll apologize and be like, oh, I'm so sorry if it seemed like I wasn't talking, but I just got these little things. And they're like, oh, I haven't noticed. Kind of look at them and be like, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. You just haven't said anything. And I feel like people aren't conscious or want to ask.
Right.
Because it's like, I don't know. I don't even know what to say, but I feel like people are kind of worried about asking because they might insult you or anything like that. No. I mean, I don't think most people with Tourette's, at least they shouldn't. But this is just coming let's just say ignorant side of me, where they shouldn't feel worried or scared or upset or scared to talk about it. It's such a massive thing that it's all mental, how can you keep that inside? It makes things worse, I find.
I've been trying to get out in front of that however I can. I'm not good at it as somebody with Tourette's and trying to talk to other people who I think have picked up on it. And sometimes I can kind of clam up and be kind of quiet about it. That's something I'm really trying to kind of figure out, even though I am completely open about it now. Yeah. Which is still kind of new for me, but I found nothing but support, which has been great when I do end up talking about it with people, and they do seem genuinely curious. And I think there might be a little bit of reservation on their end that they don't want to ask something the wrong way or ask the same question that they think I've heard a million times, and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, in the spirit of awareness, I don't care what people ask me, because I know how I can address their either misconceptions or just their general curiosities about what Tourette syndrome really is versus what they've always understood it to be by way of comedy movies like you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? I was talking to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, and we were just talking about Tourette's, having a cup of coffee and just chilling and relaxing and just talking about it. And I felt super open, and I said one thing that it just kind of came to mind, where I was like, I feel like Tourette's are kind of like asking a woman if she's pregnant. Let's just say a lot of people are like, I don't know, should I ask you if you are, or should I not? It's like, I find it's the same thing, where if it is, it is. If it isn't, it isn't. It just is what it is. Just ask it. I mean, why not? Just go for it.
Well, have you, in your volunteerism, and how, I guess, often has it been that you've interacted with other people who have Tourette syndrome?
Not that often.
Yeah.
The reason is because, I find that people who do go out to these Tourette awareness months or Tourette walks or anything like that, I find more people who go know somebody who have it than people who do have it. Because I find if at least here in Ottawa, if you have it, I find a lot of people a little bit shy and a little bit like, I don't want to go out because it might trigger something, or, I mean, you have it, and same with me, where if I see you do something, I might repeat it, and I don't want that. Of course I don't. But
absolutely,
it's such it's stuck between a rock and a hard place, because you do want to go out, but you don't want to gain something new. So I feel like it's like hand holding, where, oh, can you go for me? Oh, can you go for me? Well, if you can, for sure, go for it yourself. And I find for me, what de-stresses me is talking about it. Even if I gain something for a short amount of time, I might risk it, but at least I know I've got support and the community around, where people are just like, yeah, no problem. We're here, and I'm here for you, and you're here for me. And let's just deal with this together, and let's try and, I don't want to say fix it, but just, survive together.
Yeah, that's one. So I get a good number of emails from, parents of kids who were just diagnosed, and they have questions about expectations and resources. And then people who, they're maybe my age, 30s, and I'm 38 now, that, they just haven't lived a life of interacting with other people who have Tourette syndrome. But the question is always kind of, could you put me in touch with the resources, or point me toward a community, or, and the podcast has been great for that. But the one thing that I have found, and you're exactly right about this, is everybody I've talked with, and it's been a lot of people at this point, every single person I've talked with, or to put it another way, there's nobody in the Tourette community who doesn't have time to talk with somebody else who has Tourette syndrome to help them talk it through, or if they're going through a hard time. That resource is always, always there. And that's one really, really cool thing about this community. And by the same token, there are a lot of people who, just like you were saying, they maybe don't have it in them yet to want to make that connection, or they feel like it'll open up a door to, maybe other discoveries about themselves, or adopting new tics, but I mean, just even then, I mean, I'm just harping on this because you said it so perfectly, that we can all kind of get through this together, kind of on the same raft.
I mean, look at all the other I don't know how to call them, but like, diseases and sufferings that people are going through, and the massive community that people might have, and it's growing. It's growing in so many different ways. And I'm not talking about Tourette's in this sense. Like, here in Ottawa, cancer's been a massive thing, and it's been a heartbreaking thing, but the community's there, and it is so fantastic. There's so much community around every little thing that might affect someone's life. But I find with Tourette's, it's not well known. It's like one of those hidden gem movies where once everyone sees it, you're going to love it. And I'm not saying you're going to love Tourette's, but you're going to know about it. You're going to hear about it, and you're going to know more about it and want to know more about it. It's hidden. It's a B movie that no one knows about yet. Yeah,
that's very, very true. And that's also in communicating that, having Tourette syndrome isn't just about ticking. I mean, there are so many other things that can go along with it that they can get really interesting when it comes to personalities and proclivities and talents and advantages. I mean, it just seems like the community has a dartboard of advantages when it comes to,
for sure. I mean, for me, so I understand 100% what you're saying because, everyone has to have their little something. Their little something they're going to have. Might not be unique, but it's something that they have, which is unique to them. So even if it's recording music, it doesn't matter if there's 1,000 people doing it. You're doing it. And if you're doing it, you should be happy. You should enjoy that. You should embrace doing what you want to do. Because for me to deal with this and to get through it, not only is there a community, but it's how can I get my brain to think something else so I don't think about it.
Right.
And you just need to go. And that's one of the reasons why I love being around people, because okay, sure, you might not admit that you saw me doing something weird with my, with my neck, or just, or something with my face, but I almost guarantee it, you're now thinking about it. You're now thinking, okay, well, that person's doing something strange with their face. Why? What the heck's going on? Are they doing something odd? Is it something mental? Did they eat something wrong? I don't know. There's so many questions, but if you don't ask them, then you're never going to get the answer. And I find it's a strange way of saying that's interesting, but having tics is kind of like a conversation piece, in a sense where I'm not ashamed of my tics. Am I frustrated? Heck yes, I am. Am I annoyed? Of course I am. Yeah. Am I sad about it? No, of course not, because I've got something, and I don't mind going through it and talking about it so that there's more awareness. Because I mean, no one's perfect. No one's going to have the most perfect body. No one's going to have nothing. Somebody's going to have something. Doesn't matter how severe it is, and everyone's just got to deal with it. I mean, we're just a human race. There's so much out there that could be worse, and that's why I find here in Ottawa I'm very, very lucky living here, because the community is so fantastic. Not even with Tourette's, just in general, we've got such a lovely community around here. We don't just live in igloos. I hope people know that now. But it's such a boiling hot day today, and we're all loving it, and people out enjoying a beer, a coffee, and whatever it is, and doing this, and it's so good to see people smiling, even if they come across somebody with something that they're physically doing or verbally doing or anything like that. I mean, it's just so nice to see that no one's hopefully judging you. Which of course people could, but you never know.
Well, have you ever faced any sort of adversity or discrimination or anything like that when someone observes your tics?
Yeah. I've definitely gone through a few things where I've had to apologize, just because I feel like I might be making them uncomfortable, or feeling like they're they're just like, what the heck's going on? Is it me or is it not? If it's not so much discrimination as it is just like, I'm doing something, it's not your fault. It's all me. But how do I say that to you? And then I don't have time to talk about it, but I kind of just want to be like, I've got this, here's a card, look it up, and okay, I gotta go. You know, there's no way of doing that without going into it, because I don't know. I've had people say, what are you doing? And like, can you just stop moving? Or what do you do with your neck? Your neck's fine. And, or why do you constantly look at me with like the way you are? And I'm just like, it's not me. It's all in my head. And I kind of, I don't say that, but I'm just like, don't worry about it. It's all me. I'll just walk away. Don't worry about it. I mean, I try and take it with a grain of salt, because what are they going to do? I mean, people are people. People are curious. They might do it in a rude way, but whatever. You just move on from it. I mean, my job right now is like I said, is touring people between like a group of like 15 to 30 people around to different breweries and being on and chatting with them and this and that. No matter how sad I am inside, or how frustrated I am, or no matter how severe my Tourette's are, I've got to kind of pull it in and go with it. And sometimes it just comes out. And I find that people aren't just like, what the heck's going on? They're just like, okay, cool. Yep. All right. Sounds good.
Right. Yeah. Well, have your tics, I mean, have they been pretty steady in form or delivery over the past, I guess since you were a kid, or how have they fluctuated? How have they changed in form over time?
I want to say the first 6 months to a year, I started to do a couple verbal tics, like I said, the pig sound and other tics, just verbally. But my verbal tics are pretty much non-existent anymore. It's all physical. Like I said, I've got that bridge in my nose. I've got the pulling of the neck, and those are pretty much like my two biggest ones. That I'm going through right now, and I would say they've been going around for at least 8 to 10 years. There's not really much else I'm really going through in that sense. So I'm not doing a physical twitch or shifting or, doing like the just something with my throat. I'm not doing that stuff. I'm just doing those two main tics, but nothing's really affected me so much until I'm extremely stressed.
Right. Well, has it, and we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but, have you had any interest in medication or anything clinical?
I don't see why I shouldn't be, but I don't see the main reason. Yes, medication can help, but that's just another pill to ingest.
Right.
And I'd rather sounds strange, but I kind of just rather ride it out.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I guess in my case, there have been tics that I've had, and a lot of people can say the same thing, that, it can cause you pain, or it can at least strain you or cause displeasure throughout the day. Some people want to medicate themselves for the social aspect of it, so they just kind of have more of a smooth social experience. For me, it's just been self-acceptance, and, any sort of social fear I've had in the past is totally gone. I don't worry about that anymore.
Yeah, but, no, I'm the exact same way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but there may be situations at some point in my life. I'm not ruling out, I'm not saying, no medication for the rest of my life. There may be something that comes up where there may be pain or strain or whatever it happens to be that causes me discomfort. But that's something I feel like I want to research just for my own, edification, even if I'm not interested in medication right now. I just kind of want to see what's out there and see, what are they prescribing these days? And I think I'm probably going to have somebody on from the Tourette Association pretty soon to talk about that and what's available. But I do like the takeaway that, if you make the decision to medicate yourself, make sure it's for yourself and not for other people. I just think that's...
Well, that's it. Again, for myself as well, my doctor, I don't think it's Tourette's. And I find that Tourette's isn't like I've got a stomach ache or I've got a headache or, something's going on. It's not like, I've probably gone through it too. It's like, this is something very specific. I'm not saying it's the most niche thing ever, but it's very specific that not everyone has. And if you don't have it, you might kind of understand it, but you don't. That's why I always gave that itching situation. Like, that's the way I describe it. And as well as, like, I find that with Tourette's medication, and I guarantee you there is stuff out there, but I know I do a lot of analogies, but it's kind of like a new phone update. People who really want it will go for it, but if you don't want it, just hold out and see if all the bugs have been fixed, and then see how it is. And if it's not good, then just don't take it from the beginning.
You're good with analogies.
I do what I can with it. I've been known for that. That and the dad jokes. You just got to deal with it.
If this is too personal, let me know. But has Tourette's or ticking been a factor with relationships and things like that? No, actually, it's actually been quite the opposite. From the few girls I've dated to my wife now. Yeah. It's never been a thing where, what the heck are you doing? Can you please stop? It's like, what are you doing? And not in a demeaning way. It's like, they're curious, they're wondering. And so I'll have conversations with my wife for hours about this. And she's just so interested. And because it's something that you're obviously not expecting with a partner. You're not like, oh, I hope they have Tourette's. It's like, you don't think of it. People assume like, oh, I hope, but like, you just want this, you want that. And if it happens, it happens. But you don't think of Tourette's. You don't think of Tourette's with a relationship. You don't think of tics, because a lot of people do have them, but not everyone makes it obvious. And so far, I mean, like I said before, I've been super open about it. Like, not saying as soon as I meet you, hey, my name's Alexi, and by the way, I've got this. It's like pretty early on, because I'd rather say it early by saying like, hey, I've got this. If you see this, just ask away. I don't mind. But also keep in mind that I've got a very minor case. I'm not like not the most intense form of Tourette's that there is, and there's a crazier amount. And I'd love to learn and talk to people about that who have even more intense versions of it, because I want to see how they cope and how they deal with the intensity of going through something that they can just never push away, just never get rid of. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, I'm learning so much about the community and sort of the different shades, if that's the right word, of Tourette syndrome that are out there. And I've always been obviously conscious that there's a scale or a spectrum or whatever word you want to use, but just the appreciation you get for what other people go through, especially if they have a more intense case of Tourette syndrome. And I use the word case. That's kind of a weird thing to say, but the fact that they're trucking on and they're owning it and they're getting by, and they embrace their talents and they're doing good work for the world. And I mean, it's really inspirational to me as somebody who has, and I've said on the podcast, I have sort of like a mild plus case, I guess you could say. Yeah. It makes me feel, I always hesitate to use the word normal, but more accepted. And I know where I fit with things, and small things about my Tourette's that bothered me years ago are just not a factor for me anymore. No. And, and I know part of that also has to do with parental support that I've had. And with you too, we've kind of talked about you kind of autonomously. And if this is too personal, again, let me know. But what about like your parents and them noticing and all of that? Yeah.
My dad is the one with, again, a very mild case. My mom doesn't have it, but he's got such a mild case you wouldn't even recognize it, kind of thing. But yeah, he's got a small form. And again, this is going to sound strange at all, but I'm glad he has it, because he kind of then understands. Because it's not just like a shock. You're just like, oh no, what the heck? What are you doing? This and that. No, I've got to deal with this. I got to deal with that. It's like, yep, I get it. That's kind of what I'm going through too. And it's good to have that parental support. I've never had my parents ever say, oh, you got to stop, or what the heck are you doing? They're always just like, need any help? Just yell and scream. Because I've never shown like that need to be like, oh, baby me. Oh, make sure that I'm okay. It's a situation where I'm going to get through it. If I really need your help, I'll get in touch with you.
So, I mean, what advice would you have for say the parents of someone who was recently diagnosed, or someone who just hasn't necessarily made the reach to community, but is tempted by it. There are a lot of people, again, who listen to this podcast, and I've talked with them, who are not really active with the community, and that they're kind of watching from the sidelines, and that's totally okay. But just in terms of self-acceptance and realizing there's a community out there that you can connect with, and it's not a scary experience. I mean, if anything, it's really edifying and it's really clarifying.
Yeah.
But I mean, what would you say to anybody who has any sort of questions or hesitancy?
I would say embrace it. There's nothing wrong with it. You are who you are. And you know, it's kind of like being a bit of a misfit in a way that's, you can just enjoy it and have fun with it. And fun is not the right word, but what I mean by fun is, like, there's so much new stuff. There's always something to learn. And again, there's an infinite amount of ticks out there that you might make your best friend via situations like this, where you've got something major that you can bond with, and never be shy. I find the more people are shy, the more they're holding it in, the more stress they get, and the more ticks might come out, and all of a sudden something else and something else might push through, and they just don't want that. And never be shy about this stuff, because if I can be blunt, there's so much worse out there. So much worse out there. This is something that is, it might not be quote unquote curable, but I find that with Tourette's, it's definitely something that's extremely talked about. Like, there's so much to talk about with this stuff that anything and everything is on the table, and you should just embrace what you have, because then you're unique in your own little way, and just be you.
So what do you think you would be like if you didn't, and this is the question with the impossible answer, but if you didn't have Tourette syndrome, what kind of person would you be?
Introvert. I would 100% be a homebody. That's honestly what I really, really think I would be, because I like it. It's going to sound weird, but I like people asking me. I enjoy talking about this, and it kind of got me just out there. It kind of got me to see the world in a different way, because I'm going at a faster pace with my ticks, and people are going in a slower way without anything, let's just say. Right. And it's neat to see it from that point of view, because you'll always have a conversation. You'll always have something to talk about. And I'm not saying it always has to be negative, which is something that maybe shouldn't happen, but make that awareness happen. Be that next person in line that can say, I have it, and let's help each other. Let's work together and trying to see what can be done. I mean, there's more people out there that have it than people might know. The community here isn't as big as I thought, but I still feel like, as we've been saying, people are just a little bit too shy, a little bit too worried. And, what might they think of me? Oh, who cares? Let people think whatever the hell they think. Just be you and just enjoy it. Embrace it.
That's right. I mean, self-discovery can be a scary thing if you want to view it that way. But I mean, I love the way you put that. And I love the extroversion thing. Do you feel like it was something that you had to do, or it's more by nature? And when I say had to do, when it comes to kind of overcoming something.
I feel like I've always had that extrovert in me. Growing up, my parents have always said, like, you're so good with our friends. Like, they just love talking to you, and you had zero issues talking about anything and everything. And I've always had that knack of just chatting, talking. I've liked voice acting. I've liked acting, all that stuff. But this makes me feel good as well, because as everything is, people say, oh, you just got to overcome everything. Well, this is something I'm overcoming, but I know I'm going to have it forever. Every single time I'm going into a new thing of acting or new voice acting, I've got to deal with it and hold it in and get through the job, and then walk out being like, yes, I did it. I did something fantastic today that I know is incurable. I beat the day. I just keep walking, just keep on going.
Well, what haven't I asked about that might be missed, or that I might have overlooked with this?
Well, for me, the other thing with my Tourette's, my OCD. And I find that those go in hand with each other.
Absolutely.
And I find that, again, just like Tourette's, OCD has been overlooked in a sense where, I've got so much OCD. I clean the bathroom 18 times. Do you actually clean the bathroom 18 times? Or man, my notes, I'm so anal about my school notes. Are you that? Like, do you care that much? For me, it's a positive and negative. It's a positive where, I'm going to keep things clean. Yes, I'm going to make sure that things are done. If you say do ABC, I'll do ABC in that order. As well as one thing that I've gone through, and I feel like the only time I've really been insulted when it comes down to my Tourette's and now with OCD as well, is counting money. Let's just say I'm doing something for a retail store and I'm closing with somebody and I'm there turning the bills around and making them all face the right way and making sure that everything's neat and tidy. And people are just like, can you hurry up? And I kind of look at them being like, yep, once I'm done doing this, don't worry about it. We'll get out of here on time. And it just, it's just something I do. And if it's not done, I don't have a severe case where I kind of go crazy and I bundle up and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I just have a thing where I'm just like, chill. I'll get it done. Let me just do my thing.
Right.
This is a scratch I need to itch. Or itch I need to scratch. Wow. It's a something I need to something. You know what I'm talking about.
I gotcha.
It's cool to talk about it, and I feel like it's not the easiest thing to do to talk about it, but if you want to do anything with Tourette's, is talk about it. I think that's the biggest thing to do, is just talk about it.
Thanks for listening. Thanks so much to Alexi for giving us time here. Thanks to Sophia at the Tourette's Podcast discussion group. Thanks to all the new members there, still building the crowd. And if you're not part of it, go ahead and join. It's a closed discussion group, so you'll just ask permission to join and answer a few easy qualifying questions, and then you're in. And the questions are just there so we know that you're not a robot or a troll. And when you get there, either I will approve you or Sophia will approve you. And then you're good to go. And please tell Sophia thank you for her work as the admin. If you want to reach out, react to this episode, or ask a question, or just say hi, you can do so at tourettespodcast@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter @Tourette'sPod. All right, so I'm going to get back to reinstalling the little bits and pieces of software I lost, and we'll be back next week. Thanks again. This is Ben.